You've met her, the woman who looks a decade younger than she is. And it's not just good genes. It's not expensive creams or cosmetic procedures. There's something else, something in her energy, in the way she moves through the world, in her eyes. She seems lighter somehow, less burdened, as if time touches her differently. And while everyone obsesses over her skincare routine or her diet, they're missing the real secret. Because Freud understood something that the beauty industry doesn't want you to know. Aging isn't just biological, it's psychological. And the women who look youngest aren't the ones fighting time. They're the ones who freed themselves from something far more corrosive than years. They've freed themselves from repression. Look at any woman who seems frozen in time, who radiates a youthfulness that defies her age, and you'll notice something. She's comfortable in her own skin. She laughs easily. She speaks her mind. She doesn't apologize for taking up space. She doesn't contort herself to please others. She doesn't carry the weight of shame that most women inherit from a culture designed to control them. This isn't about vanity. This is about liberation. And liberation has a biological signature. It shows in your face, in your body, in the very cells of your being. Freud built his entire theory on one foundational insight. Repression makes us sick. When we push desires, thoughts, or feelings into the unconscious because they're unacceptable, they don't disappear. They fester. They create tension. They manifest as symptoms: anxiety, depression, physical ailments, and yes, premature aging. Because repression is exhausting, it requires constant psychological energy to keep the forbidden material buried, to maintain the defenses, to police yourself every moment of every day. And this exhaustion shows on your face. Think about what women are taught to repress from childhood. Their anger, their sexuality, their ambition, their appetites, their opinions, their very existence as full human beings with needs and desires. They're taught to be small, quiet, agreeable, self-sacrificing. They're taught that their value lies in pleasing others, in being beautiful but not vain, sexual but not slutty, smart but not threatening, successful but not aggressive. They're taught to walk an impossible tightrope. And the psychological cost of maintaining this performance is written on their faces by the time they're 30. The women who look younger have stopped performing. Not all at once, not consciously necessarily, but somewhere along the way they released the pressure valve. They stopped trying to be what everyone expected. They started expressing what they'd been taught to suppress. They allowed their authentic selves to emerge. And this emergence is literally rejuvenating. Because when you stop fighting yourself, when you stop channeling all your energy into repression, that energy becomes available for life, for vitality, for the kind of aliveness that radiates from within and makes people ask what your secret is. Freud understood that sexual repression was particularly damaging. Not because sex itself is the most important thing, but because sexuality is a fundamental life force. Libido isn't just about sex. It's about creative energy, passion, desire, the drive toward pleasure and connection. When you repress this energy, you're repressing life itself. And most women have been taught to repress their sexuality so thoroughly that they've lost touch with their own desire. They've learned to perform sexuality for male consumption rather than experiencing it for themselves. This disconnection from desire accelerates aging, because desire is what keeps you engaged with life. When you know what you want, when you allow yourself to pursue it, when you don't apologize for your appetites, you stay vibrant, you stay curious, you stay alive in a way that transcends chronological age. But when you've spent decades suppressing your wants, performing for others, denying your own pleasure, you become a ghost. You go through the motions. You age rapidly because you're not really living, you're just enduring. The women who look younger have reclaimed their desire, not necessarily in dramatic ways, but in small, consistent choices. They wear what they want, not what's age appropriate. They pursue interests that light them up, not hobbies that seem respectable. They choose relationships that satisfy them, not arrangements that look good on paper. They prioritize pleasure, not productivity. They've reconnected with the part of themselves that knows what feels good. And this reconnection shows in their skin, in their eyes, in the way they inhabit their bodies. But there's another dimension to this. Freud also understood that the superego, the internalized voice of authority and morality, could be sadistic. For women, the superego is particularly harsh. It's the voice that says you're too much or not enough, too loud or too quiet, too sexual or too frigid, too ambitious or too lazy. It's the impossible standards internalized from parents, culture, religion, media. And this voice is relentless. It criticizes constantly. It creates shame. It generates anxiety. It never lets you rest. This internal persecution is aging. Literally, the stress hormones released by constant self-criticism damage your cells. The tension held in your face from trying to meet impossible standards creates permanent lines. The exhaustion from never being good enough shows in your eyes. The women who look younger have somehow quieted this voice. They've developed self-compassion. They've rejected the impossible standards. They've stopped trying to be perfect and started being human. And this self-acceptance is the best anti-aging treatment that exists. Think about the women you know who look haggard beyond their years, the ones who seem to have aged overnight. There's often a quality of martyrdom about them, a sense that they're sacrificing themselves on the altar of duty. They're the ones who never prioritize their own needs, who give everything to their children, their partners, their jobs, their parents, who've made self-neglect a virtue, who wear their exhaustion like a badge of honor, and society celebrates them for the sacrifice, calls them selfless, noble, good women. But Freud would see this differently. He'd recognize this martyrdom as masochism, as an unconscious pattern of self-punishment. These women aren't being noble. They're acting out unresolved guilt. They're trying to earn love through suffering. They're proving their worth through sacrifice. And this psychological pattern has physical consequences. The body keeps score. The face reflects the soul. And a soul that believes it must suffer to be worthy ages rapidly. The women who look younger have rejected this narrative. They've learned that self-care isn't selfish, that pleasure isn't shameful, that prioritizing their own well-being doesn't make them bad. They've integrated the understanding that they can't pour from an empty cup, that they're allowed to have boundaries, that no is a complete sentence. This isn't narcissism. This is healthy ego strength, the ability to advocate for yourself, to protect your energy, to recognize that you matter as much as anyone else. And here's where it gets really interesting. Freud understood that much of our psychology is formed in childhood. The patterns we develop, the defenses we employ, the beliefs we internalize. For women, childhood often includes messages about aging that are themselves aging. You're told that youth is your most valuable asset, that your worth decreases with every year, that you must fight aging with everything you have, that growing older means becoming invisible, irrelevant, undesirable. These messages create an anxiety about aging that paradoxically accelerates it. Because you're spending enormous energy fighting something inevitable. You're at war with time itself. You're looking in the mirror with dread rather than curiosity. You're monitoring every line, every gray hair, every change with horror. This hypervigilance creates stress, and stress ages you. The women who look younger have made peace with aging, not in a resigned way, but in an accepting way. They're not fighting time. They're dancing with it. This doesn't mean they don't take care of themselves, but their care comes from a place of love, not fear. They exercise because it feels good, not because they're terrified of getting old. They eat well because they enjoy nourishing their bodies, not because they're punishing themselves. They invest in skincare because it's pleasurable, not because they're desperately trying to stop the clock. The motivation matters. Fear-based self-care is still a form of self-hatred. Love-based self-care is transformative. Freud also identified something he called the repetition compulsion, the tendency to recreate traumatic situations, hoping for a different outcome, but ensuring the same result. For many women, there's a repetition compulsion around seeking approval. They learned in childhood that love was conditional, that they had to earn it by being good enough, and they spend their adult lives recreating this dynamic, constantly seeking validation, constantly trying to prove their worth, never feeling like they've done enough. This compulsion is exhausting, and it shows. The women who look younger have broken this pattern. They've stopped seeking approval from sources that will never give it. They've stopped trying to earn love that should have been unconditional. They've reparented themselves. They've become the source of validation they were always seeking from others. And this internal shift creates an external glow. When you're not constantly seeking approval, you relax. Your face softens. Your energy changes. You become magnetic in a way that has nothing to do with conventional beauty. There's also the question of anger. Women are taught from birth that anger is unacceptable, unfeminine, ugly. They're socialized to suppress rage, to smile through injustice, to be nice at all costs. And this suppressed anger has to go somewhere. Freud understood that repressed emotions manifest in the body. For women, suppressed anger often shows up in the face, in the jaw, in tension that hardens features, in bitterness that settles into permanent expressions. The women who look younger have found ways to express their anger, not in destructive ways, but in honest ways. They don't smile when they're angry. They don't perform niceness when they're furious. They've learned that anger is information, that it tells you when a boundary has been crossed, when you're being mistreated, when something needs to change. They've given themselves permission to be angry, and this permission releases the tension, softens the face, restores vitality. Consider also the role of comparison. Women are taught to compete with each other for male attention, for status, for the title of most beautiful, most successful, most together. This competition is poisonous. It creates a constant state of surveillance. You're always measuring yourself against others, always finding yourself lacking, always anxious about where you rank. This anxiety is aging. The cortisol, the stress, the impossibility of ever winning a game with no finish line. The women who look younger have opted out of this competition. They've recognized it as a trap, a system designed to keep women focused on each other rather than on dismantling the structures that oppress them all. They've learned to celebrate other women rather than envy them, to collaborate rather than compete, to recognize that another woman's beauty doesn't diminish their own. This shift from scarcity to abundance thinking is liberating, and liberation is rejuvenating. Freud spent considerable time analyzing the role of trauma. And while we often think of trauma as dramatic events, there's also developmental trauma, the accumulation of small wounds. For many women, simply growing up female in a patriarchal society is traumatic. The objectification, the harassment, the constant message that your body exists for others' consumption, the realization that you're seen as less than. This trauma gets stored in the body, in muscle memory, in the nervous system, and it ages you. The women who look younger have done the work of processing this trauma. Not necessarily in formal therapy, though that helps, but through some form of reckoning. They've named what happened to them. They've stopped blaming themselves. They've recognized that the shame they carry isn't theirs, that it belongs to the culture that harmed them. And this recognition allows them to put down the weight, to release the trauma from their bodies. And when you release trauma, you literally become younger. Your nervous system calms, your face relaxes, your body unwinds. There's also something to be said about the mask. The persona. Freud understood that we all wear masks in public. We present a version of ourselves that's socially acceptable. But for women, the mask is particularly elaborate. The makeup, the clothes, the performance of femininity, the emotional labor of making everyone comfortable. The mask requires constant maintenance. And the gap between who you really are and who you're pretending to be creates internal tension. This tension is visible. It's in the eyes, in the smile that doesn't reach them, in the sense that something is hollow beneath the surface. The women who look younger have closed this gap, not by revealing everything to everyone, but by integrating their shadow, by accepting the parts of themselves they were taught to hide. The parts that are messy, difficult, unflattering, human. When you accept all of yourself, when you stop fracturing into acceptable and unacceptable parts, you become whole. And wholeness has a quality of authenticity that's inherently attractive. People are drawn to it even if they can't articulate why. It's the opposite of the uncanny valley feeling you get from someone who's all mask and no substance. Freud also recognized that creativity is a form of sublimation, a healthy redirection of libidinal energy. And creative women often age more slowly, not because creativity is some magic elixir, but because creative expression is the opposite of repression. When you create, you're channeling what's inside you outward. You're giving form to your inner world. You're processing emotions, experiences, insights through your chosen medium. This process is cathartic. It prevents the buildup of repressed material that makes people sick and ages them prematurely. The women who look younger are often engaged in some form of creative expression, not necessarily as professional artists, but as people who make things, who garden or cook or write or paint or dance or sing, who find outlets for the energy that would otherwise turn inward and become destructive. Creativity keeps you engaged with life, keeps you curious, keeps you growing, and growth is the opposite of aging in the ways that matter. But perhaps the deepest secret is this. The women who look younger have confronted the unconscious fear that aging makes them worthless. This fear is planted early and reinforced constantly. Your value as a woman is tied to youth and beauty. As you age, you become invisible, irrelevant, used up. This narrative is everywhere, in media, in how older women are treated, in the desperation you see in women fighting aging with every tool available. This fear creates a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you believe aging makes you worthless, you'll experience aging as a loss, as a diminishment, as something to mourn. And this grief, this sense of loss, this feeling that your best years are behind you, that's what ages you. Not the years themselves, but your relationship to them. The women who look younger have rejected this narrative. They've decided that their worth isn't tied to their appearance, that they're becoming more, not less, as they age. That wisdom and experience and self-knowledge are gains, not losses. This reframe changes everything. When you're not mourning your youth, when you're not grieving every birthday, when you're actually excited about who you're becoming, you age differently. You age with grace, with vitality, with the kind of beauty that has nothing to do with smooth skin and everything to do with a soul that's finally free. You become one of those women people look at and think, I want what she has. Not her face, not her body, but her energy, her presence, her obvious comfort with herself. Freud would tell you that the unconscious is always communicating. It's in your dreams, your slips of the tongue, your symptoms, and it's in your face, your body, the way you age. If you're holding decades of repression, if you're at war with yourself, if you're performing rather than living, it shows. You can try to hide it with products and procedures, but you can't fake the glow that comes from internal liberation. You can't manufacture the vitality that comes from living authentically. You can't buy the peace that comes from accepting yourself fully. So the women who look younger aren't doing anything magical. They're doing something radical. They're being themselves. In a world that spent their entire lives telling them that's not enough, they're expressing rather than repressing. They're choosing pleasure over punishment. They're prioritizing their own well-being over others' comfort. They're saying no without guilt. They're pursuing their desires without shame. They're angry when it's appropriate. They're at peace with who they are. They're creative, engaged, alive, and their faces reflect this internal freedom. Not because they've stopped time, but because they've stopped fighting themselves. Not because they've found some secret product, but because they've found themselves. Not because they're trying to look younger, but because they're finally living. And life, real life, lived authentically and fully, is the most powerful anti-aging treatment that exists. So if you want to know the secret, it's not in a bottle. It's not in a procedure. It's not in a diet or an exercise routine, though those things have their place. The secret is in freeing yourself from the expectations, from the repression, from the performance, from the belief that you must be anything other than what you are. The secret is in making the unconscious conscious, in bringing what's been buried into the light, in integrating your shadow, in accepting your wholeness. Freud understood that this work is difficult, that the defenses exist for a reason, that the unconscious resists being known. But he also understood that this work is essential, that repression has a cost, that authenticity is the path to psychological health, and that health radiates. It shows in your eyes, in your energy, in the way you move through the world, in how you age. So look at the women who seem to have stopped time and recognize what you're really seeing, not some genetic lottery winner, not someone with unlimited resources for self-care, but someone who's free, someone who's made peace with herself, someone who's stopped trying to be acceptable and started being real, someone who's released the weight of repression and reclaimed her vitality, someone who's learned that the fountain of youth isn't a place, it's a state of being, and it's available to anyone willing to do the work of becoming whole.